Everyone, and welcome to Deadpan Studio Podcast. This is a show called Deadpan Studio Presents by us, and I am, of course, your host, the Matt. Just call me Matt. I think I'm going to go from that from now on. I'm proud of my name. Anyway, today we're going to do something special today. We're doing our first video podcast. Oh, my gosh, I'm sweating bullets in here. Yeah, I'm not used to being on video. I'm more used to, being on mic. Y'all hearing my voice, but you get to see my smiling face today. That's okay. Anyway, today we're doing something special that Alan set up. We're interviewing Mr. Paul Glodfelter from the Far Off Broadway Players. He's the artistic director of the Plaza Theater. So he's the one that's kind of been behind every one of the shows that they've been doing up there the past couple of years. Really good turnout, different events, things like that they've had up there. But we all thought it would be really cool if we could just, do a video one. And depending on how this goes, we may do it again. But really, that's about it. We're excited about getting into the interview. I hope you enjoy seeing us. We recorded it through Zoom. So you'll see myself, Bradley, and Mr. Alan Hogan as we interview Mr. Paul Glodfelter. Now, before we get into that, into the interview that we were all really excited about, let's go to the business. Anyway, we have email at deadpanstudio18@gmail.com. We're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're at deadpanstudio18 there, just to make things easier. We're also on a bunch of streaming services, 14 as we speak, so we're not going to go through all of them, just a few. iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, as well as Podbean. Podbean is an app. It's also a website. It's our server, so that's where we run everything through. So deadpanstudio.podbean.com. Love it. Find us. Google us. You'll find us everywhere. So check it out. And without further ado, let's get to the interview with Mr. Paul Glodfelter. Enjoy, guys. Hello, everybody. Hi, Paul. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm chilling like Bob Dylan. How you doing?
Oh, that is the best way I've ever heard anybody put it. Chilling like Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan. I like that a lot. As you can see, everybody, this is our very first Deadpan Studio podcast virtual video podcast. And today we decided to share that with Mr. Paul Glodfelter from
the Far Off Broadway Players.
And of course, today we're joined by Mr.
Sir Bradley.
Alan, I had to change my name real quick. I realized that that was for a different Zoom meeting.
Oh.
It said Alan Evan. I was like, wait. That's not me.
That's all right. I'd use an alter ego too for my day job if I could. So. All right. So today I've actually got this labeled, and when I put this out, I've actually got this as Paul Glodfelter, Theater Renaissance Man.
Oh, good Lord.
Oh, yeah. This interview is going to be fun. It's going to be fraught with things going wrong, but that's okay. That's what makes it fun. But yeah, I did my due diligence. I'm sure everybody else has gotten to know you a little bit better, obviously, than I have, because I have yet to work with you at the Far Off Broadway Players, which I hope to, once things start opening back up.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows when that's going to be? I have no idea.
I don't know. But until then, we've got things like this to help, get us through. So I did my due diligence, and I looked some stuff up on you. And obviously, you're the artistic director of the Plaza Theater. What does one do under that title? I've always wondered exactly.
Well, as my cat is about ready to show you.
Here's a cat butthole for you.
We have the same producers as Cats the movie.
Yeah. What does one do as the artistic director? Well, everything, really. We have a board of directors who we usually meet with at least once a month, but because of COVID and everything like that, we really haven't had the chance to get together. But normally what I do is pick plays. We had been doing 5 shows a year. And after, reading a lot and, just from the experience of seeing a lot of shows and being in a lot of shows and reading a lot of shows, I had some ideas that maybe might work for our audiences here in Glasgow and, South Central Kentucky in general. And then I usually send the scripts or give the scripts to our board of directors and tell them what I'm interested in and what I think would work for us. And then they either approve or don't approve what we put out. So long story short, I pick the plays and then they get voted on by our board. And that's what we decide to do. So that's the first thing we do. And then really it's coordinating with Carolyn Glodfelter, my wife, but she's also the executive director for the Plaza Theater, and picking dates and times when we can do our shows in a particular season. So we have to go through that to make sure those dates are available and, things like that. And once that's all slated, then it's a matter of picking directors to direct the shows. I don't direct all the plays for the Far Off Broadway Players, but there are certain people that might, fit better for certain shows. Some people are really good at directing comedies. Some people maybe dramas, things like that, musicals. And then it's coordinating with our set designers, and it's coordinating with our costume person and our lighting technicians, and our lighting designers, and getting all that stuff set up. And then logistically, the business side of things is also something that I handle. So it's pretty much keeping an eye on our accounts receivable and our accounts payable, what's coming in regarding ticket sales, what's going out as far as the cost of productions. And then we have a person who handles all of our fundraising for us as far as sponsorships and things like that, but that's also things. And I also maintain our website. So I don't do anything with the Far Off Broadway Players, really.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people don't realize, I guess, they come and they see a show and they go, oh, that was kind of cool. And, they might realize there's a lot of work that goes into it, but they don't realize just how much work goes into it. So, sorry, that was a long answer, long-winded.
That's all right. I did notice that you didn't list sleep in there.
Believe me, don't get me wrong. I sleep a lot. So it's, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Just hope it's not during the rehearsals, right?
Well, if Alan's on the stage, I probably would. But if anybody else, no, I'm kidding.
I get that. Best naps of my life. Just wish I wasn't on stage with him at the time, though. Yeah.
You can't say I don't have talent.
That's right.
I can put you to sleep.
Favorite, Alan. I'm the favorite now.
Nobody's the favorite. Nobody's the favorite. And the fact that you just said that you are means that you are definitely not. So
that means Charlie's good.
Be in denial if you'd like.
That means Charlie Goodman is still the favorite.
But that's
absolutely.
okay.
That's right.
That's true.
Yeah.
So an artistic director is basically somebody who wears many, many hats.
Pretty much so, yeah. I mean, in a typical theatrical situation, you would have a general manager or a business manager and an artistic director. Somebody would handle the business side of things and the administration side of things, and somebody that would handle the artistic side of things. Mm-hmm. But in an organization, we're just a small, community theater organization here. So it's just me, and that's fine. I'm perfectly okay with that. Eventually someday, 5-10 years down the line, I would be great to grow the organization and have it bigger and have more people. But for right now, it is what it is, and I love it. So
where do you see that the theater growing in the next 10 years, since you brought that up?
Minus COVID.
Minus COVID, well, of course, yeah.
I kind of look at it this way. This isn't going to, the pandemic is not going to be around forever. We will eventually get through this. And, once everything is, we're going to have a new normal, I know, for a long period of time. There's going to be, it's not going to be the way it was for a while. It just isn't. But once we get through all of this, the goal is to, we do 5 shows a year, but I want to grow our audiences. I want to get to the point where, organizations, corporations, businesses will see the value in what it is that we provide as far as theatrical entertainment and want to help support us. And once we can build on that a little bit and build our audiences and build more sponsorships and more contributors and benefactors and things like that, once we can get to that point, then I would really, really just love to do, shows all the time. I'd like to have a show, every couple of months, every month and a half, and I know that, the Plaza would love that. They're always looking for events and things like that. And, we'd like to open up our audience. Maybe we could do a show. Maybe we could do more matinees, maybe we could do not just, Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. Maybe we could do Thursday, Fridays and Saturdays, or we could do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You know what I mean? I think, but that would take a lot more audience than we have right now.
Right.
But that's my goal. And I would like to get to the point where I have a person who always handles our costume, a person who always handles our lighting, a person who always, and eventually I would like to start giving our actors, a little bit of dinero, and give our technical people, all the people that work backstage, give them something for what they do, because believe me, ask these 2 guys below us here how much work is involved in doing a show, just from the actor standpoint. And even Alan, who has directed Odd Couple a few years back, how much work goes into all of that stuff, and right now we count on our ticket sales to really cover the whole season. So when we really look at, an entire year, we take that amount of money, and then that's what we have to work with the following year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, So, we do have a little bit of help with, like I said, some sponsors and things like that. Right now, TJ Sampson Community Hospital is a big sponsor of ours, and German American Bank is a big sponsor of ours as well. And, we're looking for more great organizations like that to really step on board and see all the great stuff we've been up to.
Now, I also saw that you've done, we're going to step away from Far Off Broadway for just a moment, that you've also worked at Jenny Wiley and Kentucky Rep.
Sure did. Right there, man.
How'd you enjoy, how did you enjoy Eastern Kentucky?
We're going to do a Paul Glodfelter, This Is Your Life, before this episode goes.
How did I enjoy Eastern? I loved Eastern Kentucky. It's gorgeous. My wife and I lived in Garrett, Kentucky, which is in Floyd County. It's right on the Knott County line, right off the 4-lane, which is 80. It's what they call it. They call it the 4-lane. And we lived in a small town of Garrett, which is basically a holler between 2 mountains. And it was nice and quiet, and we just really had a great time. And working for Jenny Wiley Theater, my wife was the sales manager there. And I did everything there. I did everything from house managing to directing to acting. I was there when we did the house managing was a fun thing. It was a lot of work because it's an outdoor amphitheater, obviously. And it floods, and, you have to go in there with, a shovel and a pick and wheelbarrows and spend hours and hours and hours getting mud and rocks and everything that rolls down off the mountain that just ends up in the theater. And not to mention relocating a lot of copperheads who'd like to find their way around that space. It was, working with Marty Childers, who was the artistic director and business manager there for a long time too, was just great. And, unfortunately, I won't go into why it kind of failed eventually, but it was way over 50 years that it was in existence. And now the state park owns it. And now it's called Jenny Wiley Amphitheater. And they are doing live concerts and that kind of stuff. And even now they're scheduling live concerts in that venue. So really, really enjoyed it. They also opened an indoor theater in Pikeville, which is now called the Appalachian Center for the Arts. The building is still there. The theater still is in existence, but it's not called Jenny Wiley. It used to be called Jenny Wiley Theater Pikeville or Jenny Wiley Pikeville Theater. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember. I used to live in Norton, Virginia, which was just, a stone's throw away from there, and spent a lot of time in that area. So
right down 23, man. Yeah.
Did you ever go to Hillbilly Days up there?
Of course we went to Hillbilly Days. Yeah.
Right down the main strip of Pikeville, Kentucky.
Pikeville is a little city, man. You drive down, you drive down 23, and all of a sudden there's like high-rise buildings, and you're going,
yeah,
where did this come from?
Right in the middle of the mountain.
Exactly. But yeah, man, it was a really fun time, and but we really missed being here in South Central Kentucky for the 5 years plus that we lived out there, and it was really wonderful when Carolyn was offered the job to run the plaza, and for us to get back here to South Central Kentucky, and where we had made our home for quite a while, and it was like we just missed everybody, and we couldn't wait to get back, even to see Alan. It was really, really a nice
Man,
thing.
that must have took a lot.
I know. It's a lot.
Half his face is in shadow right now,
Yeah.
so he's able to hide. He's able to hide his rage.
You can tell I did so much prepping for this. But first one, we'll work the kinks out, and it'll just get better and better.
Oh no,
But
no!
I'm just
just giving you crap.
I want to go back even further, and I don't mean tapping into the inner little Paul. I want to know, what was your very first experience, not necessarily performing or doing any jobs with entertainment, but what was your first experience that you can remember with that might have been the reason why you got into acting in the first place? Is there
like entertainment kind of stuff?
Yeah, is there any like performance you saw that sticks out to you to this day? Was there anything in particular you can pinpoint to the moment where you were like, that's what I want to do?
Well, I'll answer this in a couple of pieces. I've entertained for many, many, many years, starting when I was probably about 8 years old. And I used to play with my uncle's bluegrass band. And I was the little kid that used to put a cowboy hat on and go out and sing the high harmony on the Bill Monroe music out on stage with my Uncle Lloyd. It was called Lloyd Hampton and the Bluegrass Mountain Boys, and we were in Pennsylvania at the time. So I, started singing then. I also sang in church, like, about every weekend, either with my guitar or with piano or, something of that nature. But when I was in high school, I was really involved with a lot of theater. And my first musical in high school was Oklahoma when I was in 9th grade. And I just had I was just a bit part. I wasn't like, didn't have a big role or anything in it. I played the Federal Marshal Court Elam, which has like 3 lines in the whole show. And I sang all the choral numbers, of course, and danced in high school. But our drama club was pretty active, and when I was a sophomore, we raised a lot of money for a trip to New York City. And the person who was the teacher who was in charge of our theater group, our drama club, was an ex-professional actress. She had performed in Chicago, she had performed in New York, and she wanted us to see theater. She didn't want us to go to New York to see Cats, or she wanted us to see an actual, a more like classical theater kind of stuff. So we went and saw this show. I think it was the Schubert Theater, if I'm not mistaken, in New York, the drama club. It was called Tally's Folly, and it's a wonderful play. It's a 2-person play starring Judd Hirsch from Taxi.
Oh, cool.
And I was, I think, what was I, 14, 15 years of age. And I remember I walked into this theater and I saw this set, and it was an outdoor backyard in Louisiana. And you thought you were sitting in the swamps of Louisiana. I could not believe, I was completely floored by how gorgeous it was. It was just, And I was cool. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Judd Hirsch is in this play. This is really, really fun, so and so. But within the first 5 minutes, I forgot Judd Hirsch was. You just forget it's him,
Right?
And he just was so incredibly good. And I because I remember a lot of us young people were like, well, why don't we go see a musical? Why don't we go see this crap? Blah blah blah. And I was completely blown away. And it was really not long after. I mean, it was basically that was the experience where I kind of thought, I think I might want to do this. This is.
Yeah,
That's
I've got a
awesome.
similar
you walk
story
in,
for. Go ahead, man.
You walk into a theater not knowing anything about that world, and all of a sudden you're in a different world. So it's
true.
So the scenery on the set put you there, and that's when you were like, Well, or at least that was the seed that got planted, and then it grew.
100%. I mean, I never seen anything like it before. I mean, movies and stuff. But you see high school shows. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but they don't have the dollars or the money or the people or the designers to put stuff together like that.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just a flat background.
Yeah,
exactly. This was pure immersive, like theater. You know what I mean? And it just blew my mind. And so I kind of base everything that I do now on that experience. I want people to walk in when we do our shows and to be transported somewhere else. It can be done with a lot of different ways. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be the set, but that was the start of it, man. That was really, really what got me going with the whole putting you there.
Awesome. Yeah. I have a similar experience when I remember this when I was 5 years old, right before moving up here. I had the experience of going. It was in Champaign, Illinois, at the convention center they have there on University of Illinois campus. And no joke, Brad, you're going to like this. It was the Masters of the Universe Power Tour. It was a live stage show of Masters of the Universe. So I still remember almost from beginning to end just how much it stuck out in my mind, because even back then, the effects that they used, the smoke and the steam and the lights and everything, especially to see, the change between of the character of Prince Adam to He-Man, it was just so successful. And I still remember that vividly from when I was 5 years old. So that's right there, that whole immersive experience at such a young age, it just kind of really drew me in. So from then on, I've loved anything that has to do with theater.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can totally understand that. Sure.
The cat's back.
No, This is a different one.
Oh.
Is it Grandma? Hi, Grandma.
No, that was George.
That was George.
That was George.
No,
yeah.
I'm George.
No,
I'm George.
You're still Bradley.
Thank you. Somebody gets it.
Yeah, we're just waiting for you. Oh, I kill me.
He got
me. So, okay.
You're next.
So you see that, and then from there, do you remember I know it's hard to trace back exactly the steps that were taken from there, but do you remember the next significant moment after seeing that? Like, was there an audition that you done that kind of started, or did you have a friend that was like me, you mentioned Kentucky Rep and me. I had no idea that the Kentucky Repertory Theater had a young performers program and a kid could get on that stage.
Oh yeah.
I had no clue until my senior year of high school, and Jeremiah Thompson, which I don't know why he was, because I wasn't popular, but I was kind of like a class clown where I just laughed constantly and got in trouble a lot. And I don't know if Jeremiah was like, hey, you would be really good at this, or if he was just like, oh, hey, by the way, I'm doing this thing, like if you wanted to come out. I was like, what are you talking about? And it was A Midsummer Night's Dream. And he was like, you should come audition. And I was like, can you do that? Like I was completely lost in that entire world. I mean, I watched a lot of behind the scenes. I'm a movie, television show junkie, so I've seen a lot of making ofs, but I still was 100% green. Had never done it before, and I got the part. So that was like where it really started for me. After you saw that performance, what was your moment that was kind of like the beginning of this is what I'm going to do?
We did our school used to do one straight play, non-musical, every year, and then one musical every year. And because our leader of our drama club was, a professional, she thought it would be very educational for us to do a Greek tragedy in high school. And so we did the play called Antigone. And it was pretty deep stuff for people our age to be delving into Sophocles. It was pretty, but we spent probably 4 months on it, like 4 or 5 months on it, from the very first reading all the way through, learning our lines, getting our characters down, understanding what the heck we're saying when we're doing these things. I played the part of Haman, who was Antigone's lover in the show. The woman that played Antigone is now in Hollywood working on movie sets. So she kind of took that and went, on with it. We did a really good job on this show. I mean, it was like, looking back and thinking about it, I'm like, we did a really good job on that show. Well, our director thought it was so good that she wanted us to take it to competition. So we went to a place, and you can look them up. They're called the Bucks County Playhouse in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And it's right along the Delaware River, kind of like where Washington crossed the Delaware. It's literally right there in New Hope, Pennsylvania. And the Bucks County Playhouse is, it had been closed for a few years because a lot of theaters, unfortunately, have had financial problems, but it's reopened recently. But they are considered one of the top regional theaters in that area. But it's literally an old barn, kind of like Kentucky Rep used to be. And we got to perform 45 minutes of Antigone in this play competition at Bucks County Playhouse. And I remember standing on that huge, monstrous stage, feeling like a little like Judd Hirsch on Broadway, even though it was just Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And that little, you really want to do this. This is really, really fun. And it was such meaty material, to really get into that. And finally, my senior year in high school, we did the musical Godspell. And I auditioned and got cast as Jesus Christ in Godspell. And
where do you go from there?
Yeah, right. I mean, as you can imagine, being in high school, like our high school was state championship basketball, state championship football, state champion baseball. I mean, they were like a sports school. And here's a guy who was 6'2", 158 pounds, soaking wet, who was in theater and drama, or in music, and sang in the chorus. And the amount of abuse that I took on a regular basis was pretty epic, And I remember we did our final dress rehearsal on a Thursday night in our high school of Godspell, and my principal came and saw our final dress rehearsal. And he liked it so much that he thought it would be a good idea to have us perform it during the school day on that Friday for the student body. And we were terrified. I mean, we're like, you want us to do it for what? You want us to do it for, are you kidding me? Right? So we did, it was like right after our lunch period. All the students came into our theater, our auditorium, and sat down and watched us perform Godspell. And I guess what they call watershed moment for me was having these football players and these, people that just don't understand. It wasn't their fault. You know what I mean? They just didn't get it. They just didn't understand why would we do things like this. But they walked up to me, in our little shake the hands line after the show and said, "Oh my gosh, man, I had no idea you were so good." And this one guy that had abused me my entire high school career said, "Now I know why you do this." And that changed everything for me. Mm-hmm. I went to school, was a music major, theater minor, and the rest is history, but that really, so there it is in a nutshell. I mean, I guess it was little pieces like everybody's life, little things happen all the way through to get you where you are today. And don't even get me started about how I ended up here with the Far Off Broadway Players. That would take 2, 3, 4 podcasts before we could even get that story out.
Yeah, the only thing what I remember about that is the Far Off Broadway Players was doing things my mother taught me, which I was in. And I remember one night after, I don't know if I knew it beforehand. I did not. But after curtain, I looked over and I saw, I believe it was Charlie and Peggy, talking to this tall dude with his back turned to me. And I was like, and then I heard your voice, and I was like, I know that voice. and then I saw you, and I was like, Paul. And you're like, oh, hey, good job. Good job. I was like, well, that's cool. Where'd he come from? And then, of course, we went out to eat that night. You came along, and I believe at that dinner is when it was announced, hey, Paul's gonna, or we're talking to Paul. Peggy told me something. I don't remember if there was an announcement, but I remember Peggy being like, we're trying to talk him into, that's it. She whispered it to me. She's like, we're trying to talk him into joining us, joining our little, I was like, oh, that's cool.
Well,
that's gonna happen. And it did. And I was like, well, this is awesome. You got Charlie Goodman, Peggy Goodman. And now they're bringing on Paul Glodfelter, who I only knew from KRT, but enough to know this is going to be awesome.
Well, it was, they asked me, first of all, Charlie asked me if I wanted to do the dinner theater show in the summer, which was Love, Sex, and the IRS. And I wasn't doing anything in the summer, so I said, sure, I'll come and do it. And he was like, really? I said, yeah, I'll come and do that. That's not a problem. Would you be interested in directing To Kill a Mockingbird? And I said, I would love to direct To Kill a Mockingbird. But it was during the summer show when Charlie Goodman, who is the president of the Far Off Broadway Players and the board of directors, his wife, of course, is a board member as well. But it was during that show that we kind of worked out logistically how and what my responsibilities would be and what I would do as far as, taking over the organization. And, because it was already a great organization. It was just basically taking it to the next level.
Right.
Because I wouldn't have, this is not going to sound awful, I don't mean it this way, but I mean, I wouldn't have jumped on board with an organization where I didn't feel there was some definite possibilities and promise there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And let's face it, we get to perform on the Plaza Theater stage. I mean, that's a gorgeous place to be, man. I mean, that's like just an honor just to walk on, what we call them the planks, to walk on the planks where so many people have performed, over the years. It's amazing to be even on that stage.
Yeah, so not even just theater, but music, you name it, has been up there. And
absolutely. So, it's a complete honor to me. And I've always been about, even though I've performed a lot of different places across the country, for me, it's always been, I want to be home. I would love to be home and be able to do what I do. And, the Far Off Broadway Players and their board and Charlie and Peggy, they gave me the best gift anybody could ever ask for, which is to be able to stay home and do what it is I do for a living. So it's like, wow, I'm so fortunate and so lucky. You know what I mean? So no complaints here for anything really, other than COVID, where I can't do what I do.
Right.
Kind of stinks, but, you know.
Now,
Yeah, because the Far Off, man,
a lot
Far
of
Off
your-
was rolling pre-COVID. I mean, it was amazing just to watch it happen, whether I was in a particular show or not. I was just like, Far Off they're doing pretty good right now. And COVID, pow! But
it's all right. We'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah, we'll get back.
Yep.
I noticed in a lot in the shows that you directed and in your performances, there's a lot of obviously sometimes actors will they'll just go and they'll just think about what they're supposed to say and how they're going to say it. But I've noticed that there's a lot more deep thought into the things that you present on stage, whether it's behind the scenes or in your role itself. Did you get that when you were going for your philosophy and British literature degree?
Boy, that's a tough one. That's a lifetime of reading, learning, failing, picking myself up, nervous breakdowns, therapy. For me, I'll say this, Matt. This is when I went to school, went to Sales University, and I started studying theology, and I started really hitting all the great Greek philosophers, and so much of what they said makes sense, but so much of what they said did not jive with the world and the way that I see it. And to me, nothing is black or white, and that goes for human beings. And as far as playing characters and roles, I mean, we're always conflicted in one way or the other, and it is that conflict that creates realness and realism, and it's not conflict between two people, it's conflict within oneself. And we all have it, we all have that conflict. I'm sorry this is getting so deep, you can dig me out here later, but no matter how silly the character, no matter, if it's a farce, which is, if it's, a Greek tragedy, if it's a, Shakespearean tragedy, whatever, these people all have conflict, internal conflict. And I think it's a difference between a person who acts well and an actor. The old school of acting was think of a thought, think of a memory that might help put you there, your character there, and where you need to be. And I think I never jived with that because it always felt so fake to me. It always felt so. Some people, there are some actors who pulled it off beautifully that you didn't know they were doing it. That they did it really, really, really well. And then there are some that didn't pull it off so well. So what do you do? Well, I won't go into the Meisner Technique, but there is a particular technique in acting called the Meisner Technique.
Yes, there is.
Which is basically going there with your characters. It is letting your hair down and totally finding a way to create this person. Forget yourself and just create this person and it's not easy. I mean, it's a very difficult thing to do at first. But once you get used to doing it that way, there is no other way to do it. So, I guess it was a little bit of everything, Matt, that really kind of got me there. And honestly, I have had the enormous privilege to work with some of the finest actors in the country, who I would stand and watch rehearsals and watch them in awe on how they would, oh man, it would just move me and get me to these points. I'm like, how do they do that? How do they really, so I would have lots of conversations with them, and they helped teach me how to go there and how to do these kind of things. So, and it's funny, most of them feel the same way I do about the way everything is gray and nothing is black and white. And I think it's kind of funny in our country right now where we're so divided, that those of us in the arts are going, but can't we all just get along?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I hear you, I hear you. Absolutely. But, there's this really, really spot in the middle where we can sit down and have a cup of coffee or drink a beer and go, hey, let's just talk a little bit, man. And, let's break some bread, have some fun,
Recently,
so
harder and harder as each day goes on is to have a conversation.
Well, but see, that's what theater is.
Yep.
Theater is a big conversation. And, being given the privilege to do it as many years as I have, I think those of us have done it understand we work with people from all different ages, from all different walks of life, from, all different, political realms and that kind of stuff. And, when we're in rehearsal, none of that matters. We all like each other and we all get along. And, sometimes somebody might say, well, I really like Paul, but, he's kind of, he's a registered Democrat, you know what I mean? Well, Alan's good, but he's a registered, What'd you say, Bradley?
You've heard that then. I've heard it too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Which is fine, but if people ask me what my views are, I'd be more than happy to tell them. You know what I mean? But doesn't mean everybody has to have my views.
No, because a lot of times people need to remember that your views should stop at the door because you're there to be entertained. And
absolutely.
And lose yourself in the hour and a half to 2 hours that these people are working hard on stage to bring a show. Just forget about life for a little bit.
Yeah, and that's really to act in itself, Paul. You were talking about there's a gray area, and that's not just like political. That's everything. Like anything you can think of, there is a gray area, or any major topic subject. But as an actor, you get to be so many different people. And you don't go into a role like you mentioned To Kill a Mockingbird. I was in that show. Fantastic. I was Mr. Gilmer. Not me, fantastic. The show was fantastic. And he's not a great person. He is the prosecutor for that story. And if you're familiar with To Kill a Mockingbird, you know what the trial is about. And I don't know how many times I apologized to Kendall after every show. I am so
You shouldn't be so much of a method actor, Alan.
Well, but Kendall said it over and over. They need to see it. They need to hear it.
Yeah.
The words that was happening to be said, it was necessary for the audience to get encompassed. Is that a word?
Sure.
Engrossed, encompassed,
into the story of what this message is that we're putting out.
Yeah, and the message isn't necessarily the words. It's the whole play itself has a message on its own.
Yeah, and even though Mr. Gilmer is not Mr. Hogan, Mr. Hogan's responsibility was to tap into the thoughts of Gilmer.
Right.
Where's he coming from? Is it just his job, which helped a little? Or it's just he's a lawyer, that type of mentality. But playing all these different characters, even though you don't agree with them 110%, you get a little taste of where they're coming from.
Absolutely.
And that helps bring to conversation.
Well, that's how one way you can tap into that character, even if it's such a revolting character at face value.
Yeah.
With some of the things that they said and did, there's always a line or a grain of something that you can tap into in which you can relate to them. And it may not have anything to do with the awful things that they do, but like Mr. Gilmer, the signs of the times, the economy's doing bad, like right now. If you're in a show and you need to tap into that character, that's something you can tap into, the intrinsic hatred that you have because things aren't going well and you're looking for something to blame or someone, and that's something you could tap into. And, that's just, one of the things that comes with it.
And that's one of the reasons I say act. And Paul, I know you feel the same way. Acting is therapeutic.
Oh yeah.
If you can go on stage and honestly play a character that you despise in real life, or you might not necessarily want to have a cup of coffee with, that is.
Think of the people on the other end when the bad guy gets their comeuppance, how cathartic that is for some people.
There's a thing that we do, and you guys have all acted, but it's called a backstory, and
give it to make up your own little.
Right. So sometimes, depending on the play and the actual words, there's enough in there that you can determine how this person was brought up, how were they reared, what's their imprinting, what were their parents like, did they know their parents, did they have extended families, were they spoiled, were they poor, were they how did they handle these situations, because we all are products of those things even in real life. So it only makes sense to create a backstory for a character that you are playing, so you know where you're coming from. Our responses in real life to situations and conversations are a lot of time based on the imprinting of our past experiences, and that's where a lot of these things come from. So playing a character is just like that. So if you want to make it real, like Matt, you said about getting deeper and that kind of stuff, that's really where it starts. It really starts with, who are these people? I played Bob Ewell in To Kill a Mockingbird at Kentucky Repertory Theater, who was one of the most worst alcoholic, abusive men I could ever imagine. It was just, and it hurt me. It really hurt my insides to play him. It was, because it was the antithesis of who I am as a human being. But I had people that wouldn't talk to me after the show because they just did not like me at all, which is perfect, right? You say, that's great, I did my job, but it hurt my feelings so bad at the time. Well, Chris Bartley, right? Chris Bartley, who played To Kill a Mockingbird in our show with Far Off Broadway Players in 2017, is one of the nicest men you'll ever meet in your entire life. He is.
I agree. I know that guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is just got a heart of gold, right? And when I cast him in this show, he looked at me and said, "What are you trying to say to me, Paul? What are you?" And I said, "Look, I played the role too. I'm just saying, I think you have it in you to really do it, And he would say, "This is awful. This feels really awful." And I said, "That means you're doing it right." Yeah. I said, "But think about this. Think about the fact that, do you think Bob Ewell felt good about himself either? Like, do you think he felt good about the way he was? Where his responses were just products of his life and his upbringing and where he came from and what his life was like during those times, and alcoholism and he goes," I said, "That is what creates a character. That's what creates these people that we know. We all know people like him, whether we want to admit it or not. We know people like that in our lives, right?" And boy, did he was just an awful human being on stage. Like, he pulled that off so incredibly well. I mean, I told him afterwards, I was like, "Dude, you totally, you were so much better than I played this role." I mean, I was like, you were just killed it. It was like,
so next time, pull it back just a little bit there, Chris.
It's amazing how one of the nicest people makes a perfect villain. Like, he's a perfect bad.
Yes, he looks mean. He's standing up there in the middle of the stage with him. He just has this mean look to him, and that's not who he is.
No, he certainly.
Well, he played Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life, and was the same way, just a rotten human being. Just rotten.
I tell you what, every role that I've had, I've played, except for one, I've played a bad guy, and I think it's because I make it my mission. See, at the theater that I was at doing most of these shows, like I said, I haven't done the Plaza and the Far Off Broadway yet, but I will. I've always done mine at Barn Lot Theater, and they do these things called Star for a Star. And it's if somebody in the audience likes your performance, wants to give you a comment or anything like that, they pay $1, write a message, sends it to the cast at intermission. I made it my mission every performance to make sure I didn't get one. And thus far, I've only gotten one, and that was only because I was told I was scary. So I take that as a win. But that's one of those things. You try to tap into a place you don't normally think you're able to go into, and kind of make a goal for yourself.
It's all part of it, man. It's all part of it.
Now, I have yet to actually ask a question here, but I want to get one in there. So when I was cast as George Bailey, I think that's something that you have kind of mentioned before, that maybe I was a little like George. Have you ever played a character yourself that was a lot like Paul Glodfelter?
Oh boy. A lot like me.
Me personally, I didn't realize that I was a lot like George until after the fact that it was over. But
I think, well, first of all, some of my favorite roles were some of the smallest roles. Like some of the cameo roles, which come in and, they come in for one scene, two scenes, and, you're as memorable as you can, and then you leave and they're never heard from again, and those have been some of my favorite, not just because of the small amount of work that's involved, but but really just getting a lot of accolades for playing these crazy characters. I think honestly, playing Murray the cop in The Odd Couple many, many years ago, Murray's a lot like me in terms of his sensibility, where Murray had the capability of not being one way or the other, but always living in the gray area, and always trying to find the good in everybody, and I think, Murray's close to me in that respect. And probably a little bit of George Banks and Mary Poppins, which I played a few years ago. And George is loves his family, was really caught up in the world trying to make something of himself. And I had a period of my life where that was my sole goal, was to make something of myself. And, I always love it when people say they want to make something of themselves. And I'm like, but you already are something, you know what I mean? It's not like, what, so I think it would really, if you're talking about me now, I would say Murray the cop from The Odd Couple is probably, the closest that I am. And definitely not Oscar Madison. He's about as far from me as humanly possible. Although I enjoyed playing the role, that was fun. But
I think what Brad was asking there was, at the time of playing a certain role, was there any one in particular that was close to you at that moment? That way, to where when you got on stage, it was almost too personal, or you felt like, I'm exposing myself a little bit here?
No, maybe Reverend Shaw from the musical Footloose.
Mm-hmm.
It's the musical's a little different than the movie. So if you've seen, what's his name? The guy that plays the Reverend in the movie.
Lithgow.
Yeah, John Lithgow. But in the musical version, the Reverend role is a much more it's much more expanded, and you get to you get to really delve deeper into this guy who is pretty, he's pretty, what's the word I'm looking, conflicted. He's you know, and the woman who played my wife in that show, it was the first large musical, it was the first professional large role this woman had ever done in her life. And she was terrified to play this role. And what I found was, but she was also a deeply spiritual person. And I think working with her and then delving into this guy, there were some things about him that really, there were some qualities and beliefs that he had that I too shared. But when they came out of his mouth, I realized how kind of messed up they sounded. That makes sense. I can think of many times where I've done a role where it's made me introspective and said, I think I've said exactly the same thing at some point. And man, that's really not a cool way to be. That's not, you know what I mean? That's not a cool way to sound or cool. And that's the beauty of art. Music does that too. You know, you talk to many musicians who write songs, sing songs, and when they hear the words coming out of their mouth that they wrote, how cathartic those kind of things, can be, and I've heard from many actors who've played roles that, if you start a character, first day of rehearsal, and by the time that you're closed that show, if you're the same human being afterwards, then you didn't do it, because no matter what you do, it changes you.
Yep.
Heck, I can sit down with my guitar and play a song, and I'm not the same person I was when I started playing the song than when I got done playing it. It changes you in some way. Think about going to a place the first time and seeing a mountain that you never saw before, right? And you walk in there with a mood and a certain thing and a certain attitude, and you spend 5-10 minutes staring at this beautiful mountain and seeing, and all of a sudden you're like not the same person. You feel differently about things, and boy, playing a role in a show is the most cathartic. Wow. It's, it does move you and change you. So, and I'm just going to stop talking because
I was sitting here thinking while you were saying that is I had a question for myself where I don't know if it's more of a piece of the character staying with you or a piece of you gone staying with the character, but I think it's both.
That's what I think.
It doesn't happen every single time this deep anyway. But I feel like you kind of swap a little. You drop a piece of yourself off there on the stage with the character, and you take what you learned and you replace it.
I'll tell you, as a director, I love watching that happen, man. That's one of the most beautiful things. I mean, I love acting, but man, I almost love directing more, because watching you guys start with something and then watching your attitudes and you change completely by the time we get done, that is a beautiful thing to watch. That's just, and ask anybody who's been directed by me, I'm kind of a jerk. So I push pretty hard.
No, that's because you want the best out of your actors so you can put on the best show possible.
I do it with a smile, though.
Doing it for hours.
What's that?
What?
I was saying that I took great pride in the fact that I made you tear up and kind of forget to throw the music cues in during Tech Week.
That was just his excuse.
Well, what it was
He was just hungry.
It was the tuna sub with lots of onions on it that really got me.
See, told you.
Yeah. And I made you feel good by telling you made me cry. What can I say? Hey,
He's an actor.
No, I'm just kidding.
It's Tech Week and we've come to this.
Yeah. Tech Week. Tech Week is.
That's the roughest one.
Bittersweet. Yeah. Because you got to do it. And then at the same time, you're like, oh man, when we do this, it's over. You know?
The worst tech week I ever had with the Far Off Broadway Players was Dracula, for sure.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. That was a tough.
Amazing.
There was a
show.
lot of moving parts in that show, yeah, and we were still using the old equipment thing because the Plaza has all new stuff now. New lighting consoles, new lighting setup, all that kind of stuff. And back then we were still using the old stuff. We were using, borrowed microphones, and because now we have our own. So
we'd have to climb that huge firefighter ladder to change the gels out.
Oh, hey, many times.
Firefighter, you climb. I don't want to die.
I tell you what, though, sometimes, even though you've got new, just sometimes with the old, you kind of run into situations where things happen no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
I have to say that one of my most memorable things from one of your shows that you were in, Paul and Alan and Brad, was Sleepy Hollow, when the smoke set off the and you were walking down and you're like, well, we're going to start again.
The opening scene was
But you didn't break character. You stood up there so stoic, and we're gonna start over. Oh, that was one of the best things.
It wasn't backstage.
No, I'm sure everybody was panicking backstage.
I said,
"What?" Been there when things go wrong.
What a great way to start a horror type show is for this to happen, and then you got people running out of the theater. Well, not everybody.
Alan, do you remember in Musical Comedy Murders in 1940 when Deanne's supposed to pull the desk drawer out and the bookcase does not open when it's supposed to open?
Yeah. When theater goes wrong.
Yeah, when theater goes wrong.
That was probably the biggest thing personally. And I have fallen flat on my face at Kentucky Rep. Not one person in the audience laughed, so I don't know if that was better or worse. But very first entrance for Much Ado About Nothing, I tripped going down the steps and landed flat on my face. And
that was probably panic until the audience realized you're okay.
What I witnessed with Paul and that fire alarm was worse than that. And because I was off on the side of the stage looking at him going, okay, he's paused. He's holding. And finally, he's like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to start talking. Okay, guys, we're at a hold. Can we bring lights up?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no, poor Paul. This is awful.
And now,
if I'm not better,
debut was when the smoke alarm happened, so.
Well, I tell you, it is still definitely better than having to stop a show when a huge group of ticket holders finally show up about 10 minutes in, and you have to pause everything, and your choice is either to start over or just sit there in, stage dark and wait until they come back up and continue.
I'll tell you what, man. I was working in the booth at Kentucky Repertory Theater. I think it was 2017, if I'm not mistaken, and they were doing a show called "And Then They Came for Me," and it is a show about Holocaust survivors, and it's a very, very powerful show. And I'm pretty sure it was an evening performance. And as happens here in South Central Kentucky, we had some serious storms blow through, and Horse Cave was without power. And, we had 120, 130 people in the audience. So the show started and the power went poof, gone. And, and what can you do? What can you do? So we gave them the option of seeing the show done by candlelight, or basically, getting a refund and getting another ticket to come another time.
That would have been really cool.
Well, we did the entire show by candlelight. We got all these candles, and if you've ever been in Kentucky Rep, it's what they call a thrust stage. So the stage thrusts out into the audience. So all along the thrust, we put candles all the way around the very, very edge. So it's like the old footlights in old theaters. And all the actors pulled the action down so they could be seen by the candlelights. And I will never forget that as long as I live. It was one of the most beautiful, and the audience who stayed and saw it said it was one of the most magical things that they've ever seen. They didn't need, all the bells and whistles, because the story itself really was what was important. You know what I mean? But yeah, I will never forget that as long as I live, doing that show by candlelight. That's the one and only time that in my life that has ever happened. But, there's always once. There's always once.
The power going out took a play that was meant to be raw and made it a genuine raw moment. Any rawer than that.
I don't think they could have drawn the audience in more than it did then, just by candlelight.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was really cool, man. I'm telling you, I just think back on those, and I'm like, wow, that was like a really, really cool moment. So, there's tons of those things, man. And that's another thing that's great about live theater is that you never know what's going to happen. Ask Alan. He's done film too. Film, you have how many takes to get a scene right. In theater, you have to do it right the first time. And if you mess up, you just got to keep going. It's not like, you can say, cut, let's try this again, take 2, take 3, take 4. Theater, it's like, boom, it's out there. And thank goodness I've never messed up on stage. I've never.
That's something I was going to ask you. By the way, audience, we'll be selling theater do's and don'ts DVD right now of this interview for $19.99. No, that's one of the things I was going to ask you. Because I know I've done it before. Have you ever gotten so lost in a role that you just kind of jumped off the page and not realize it and kind of did your own thing, and then you realize you went, oops?
Yes. Many times where, depending on the role, sometimes you get so into it and you get rolling and you forget where the heck you are. I've had that happen, a couple of times. And usually it's a fine actor, person on stage that saves me and brings me back to reality again and where I'm supposed to be. I was doing a show in Florida one time, in Fort Myers, Florida, called the Great American Trailer Park Christmas Musical.
Perfect for Kentucky.
And I played this guy by the name of Jackie Boudreau, who was a real sleazeball businessman who was basically taking over this trailer park to turn it into a giant entertainment complex. Including turning it into with a restaurant that basically is like Hooters for pancakes, where the girls wear pancakes on their chests. So that's the kind of guy he is. It's all about money. Well, long story short, he falls for this one girl in the trailer park. Even though he's a jerk. And I'm literally like, this pimped out in my, mauve velour double-breasted suit, walking in slicked out with my aviators on. And I have this argument with this guy who was like the handyman of the trailer park. And he and I go back and forth and argue. And it was one of my favorite parts of the show where we argue back and forth and eventually gets interrupted by this other character who comes out. Well, I don't know. We were really into it. Like we were just, arguing back and forth and yada, 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 and really getting into it. And my lines just went poof, just gone. I had no idea. And I literally, and this might, I don't know if this will work, via video, but this is what it looked like when me looking at him. I had nothing. And he stared at me. And I was like, nothing was coming out. Like I couldn't think of anything. So out comes the actress who was going to be, probably, 2 minutes earlier than she would have, and basically saved the scene. So later we're in what we call the green room, which is pretty much, the place where all the actors hang out. between scenes and that kind of stuff in the dressing room. And so the guy I was on the scene with walked in and he was like, "Dude, are you okay?" I went, "Yeah, why?" And he was like, "Oh my God, I thought you were having a stroke, man. You were just like up there, like, and I said, no, I call it going to the white room.
Yeah.
Where there's nothing there, no matter what you can do. So, there's plenty of times, Matt, where bad things happened. Yeah.
I remember when I was in Miracle Worker, and I played Helen Keller's father, Captain Arthur Keller. And it was the climax of the movie where, everything is just coming to a head, and we're sitting around the dinner table. And we, of course, I'm the whole character of Arthur. He's very angry, and it's not, he's just a naturally angry person. It's his station in life and the hardship he feels he's having to face because of his daughter, who is the way she is. And he's a fixer, but he can't fix anything. And the one who's fixing it is, of course, Annie. And so he's got so much pent up frustration, everything like that. And it all comes to a head at the very end of the show, sitting around a dinner table. And Helen ends up running out of the doorway to, the yard and everything like that. And so does Annie. And I'm getting up to go chase after, just like a bull in a china shop, just ready to barrel through. Well, this guy that I'm on stage with, Alan, him, Dustin, and he plays my son, and he's supposed to stand up and have his actual big moment of standing up to me finally. And he just stands there, and I've drawn on everything from the entire show in the past rehearsals and all that stuff. And all I could think of to come out of my mouth, instead of, your place, what are you doing, and all this stuff, the only thing that comes out was I get nose to nose with him, and I yell, "Boy!" And he freezes.
Yeah, Dustin,
we go backstage, and he goes, "What happened?" And I went, "I'm sorry. I was actually really angry at you at the time, and I don't know why."
Yeah, Dustin Hoff, he played the cowboy in Dracula.
Oh, yeah.
He did?
Yeah.
He did. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Good guy. Very talented.
He did a great job of that role, man. I'm telling you, that was another one of those shows that we pushed the boundaries a little bit, and people would say, "Well, it's Dracula." I'm like, "Oh no, this is a."
Great thing about him too is that he's so young.
Yeah. I mean, when I tried to explain to him, this is a graphic novel, rock and roll Dracula, and that he can take it as far as he wants with him. Like you can, you don't have to worry about. Not that you don't have to worry about characterization. I'm like, but you're going to take everything that this guy is about and take it even further. Like, take it to the end. I mean, as far as you can. Like, just as far as you can. And boy, I'll tell you, from day one of rehearsal to where he ended up doing as the, actually as the role, he did a great job. I mean, he really went there. And even with, Dracula is really with 3 brides of Dracula. But the women that came out and auditioned for the brides, I felt, what the heck, let's put 4 in. Really doesn't have to be 3, let's put 4. So unlike the book by Bram Stoker, we had 3 brides of Dracula, which I thought actually worked out better anyway. But anyway, yeah, man. Lots of mess ups over the years, but that's the beauty of theaters. I've seen stuff in professional shows that have been mess ups that have made the show.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
That just made the experience even better for me. So, I watched a show in Atlanta one time where a person was heckled by the audience, and the character, you're not supposed to do this. The character just basically broke character, looked right at the person, and went right back into the scene. I'll never forget. Didn't say anything. Just, and the director of me was going, oh, why'd you have to do that? And then I kept thinking, the person never said another word. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, all right, that's, that was a beautiful thing. But anyway.
I saw
once it's in front of the audience, too late.
I want to say
Exactly.
it was, oh my goodness. Who's been playing 007 the past, 5 to 10 years?
Oh, Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig and Hugh Jackman, I believe is who it was. They were doing a play, and I'm not sure which one, but there's a video of this on the internet. Somebody's phone goes off, and it looks to be a very intense scene that is taking place here. Like, Daniel's got his head down, sitting in a chair. He's full on in it. And Hugh's standing there. The phone goes off. It rings and rings and rings. And finally, Hugh Jackman's like, you going to answer that? We'll wait. Go ahead. And Daniel Craig, if he did look up, it was just a glance.
Right.
He tried his best, staying in it. I'm staying in it. I'm staying in it. But yeah, sometimes, when something like that happens, I asked, I remember Robert Brock at KRT being asked, can we tell an audience member to shut up? Or if somebody is being unruly during the show, can we say something? No. Which I think he probably was thinking, well, I've done it. But these are kids, and there's no telling what would happen. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, but eventually, the more you do it, stuff like that just kind of, you hear a kid crying. It's really hard unless you're just having an off night. It's really hard to be taken out of the scene that you're in. If anything, it makes me want to get louder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we could go on and on for a number of hours about things Paul has done, would like to do, and all this stuff. So how about we do a one round table of a final question from all of us if we have one.
We'll let Brad go first.
Paul, at the very beginning of this interview, you had, you were talking about everything that you did as far as being the artistic director. One of the things that I wanted to point out that you seemed to fail to mention was the fact that you were a talent scout.
You are a legend in your own mind, Bradley.
Alan brought me to you, so.
Yeah.
Glad to have you on board, my friend. Glad to have you on board.
I've got one. Who would you say is there somebody that you've really wanted to work with as either a director or an actor that you haven't gotten to yet?
There's somebody, right, Paul?
I don't know. I mean, I really, really wanted to direct Charlie Goodman at some point. And I finally had the opportunity to do that, which was really, really great. And Charlie is a wonderful actor and a really, he's got a brain for theater. I mean, he really does, and he's done it for so many years, and he gets it, he gets it from all levels. So I guess Charlie was somebody that I am glad I finally got a chance to work with. I hadn't had a chance to work with Catherine Thomas, who had done a lot of shows with the Far Off Broadway Players in the past, and I finally got a chance to work with her, which was really, really a wonderful experience. But I guess I don't think of it in terms of, there are roles that I never played that I would love to, have a chance to do someday, before I get too old to really, I want to play King Lear someday so badly it's not even funny. But finding the opportunity to do that, I always thought I'd make a really great Ebenezer Scrooge, but I never had the chance to actually, play that role. But that would be a role that I would love to.
Just live that part through every time you direct. That's all you need to do.
Well, yeah, exactly. But honestly, it is just a pure. I think casting shows is so much fun for me because I see people in auditions that I go, I want to work with them. So, to answer your question is, I see people like that all the time that I want to work with. And maybe this show isn't right for them. Maybe I don't have a part for them in this particular production. Sorry, my cat's drinking my water. But there have been times when people have auditioned for shows 2 or 3 times, and I hadn't put them into a show, and all of a sudden a show that we're doing comes up, and I go, that person would be perfect for this role.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, it happens all the time. I just, hopefully get a chance to do it with everybody I want to work with.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I remember.
Was you there, Matt?
Do what?
Was you fishing there?
No, no, that was just it's an honest question.
It is an honest question.
We
Yeah.
were doing Frankenstein, and I remember we had to rehearse at a school in Glasgow, and one of the things that really stuck out to me was there was no air conditioner, so it was really hot. But anyway, I remember Charlie grabbing me or pulling me to the side, and he was like, that scene that you just rehearsed, I really like how you did that. And I remember thinking, that's cool. I guess they're going to let me keep coming back. Charlie, it's really, really cool to know that somebody like Charlie appreciates what you do and how you do it. Because
Absolutely.
Man has been doing it for so long. Him and Peggy, keeping the Far Off Broadway Players going for as long as they have is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing
And
task.
it was 10 years before I came on board that it was basically their ball game. I mean, they kept it going, and and I know they really wanted to. They didn't want it to change necessarily. They didn't really want to change the Far Off Broadway Players, but at the same time, they wanted to take what they had built, and I think that was my whole thing was like, well, I don't want to change anything. I just want to make it better than that. I just want to make it better and continue to make it grow and continue to make it better and that kind of stuff. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to say one thing here. We are so blessed here in South Central Kentucky, and I've said this on stage during curtain speeches and stuff, but I want everybody to know this, that we have so much great theater in this area. I mean, really. Kyle Hadley and I, are friends. I've known him for a while now, and Kyle is just a great guy over at Barn Lot Theater, and all the people over at Barn Lot do a great job. And the fact that they have kept that theater going for as long as they have is a testament to all the people involved over there. So give them 100% kudos for everything. And so many people that act at Barn Lot, act in our shows. Some people that act in our shows act at Barn Lot. And I think it's a great relationship. So I will always be supportive of them. And I know that they, too, are really supportive of what we do. We have a partnership
Absolutely.
with, we help promote their shows. They help promote our shows, et cetera. And we also have PTK in Bowling Green, the Public Theater of Kentucky, who just do a really wonderful job there at the Phoenix Stage in Bowling Green. And we have, we have, what's it called now? The Star Theater out in Russell Springs, which is doing a lot of different stuff out there as well. So we're just so lucky here. And our schools, oh my gosh, like Glasgow, high school, Glasgow Middle School and Barron County Middle School and Barron County High School, they put on great shows, man. Like, I can't believe the amount of talent that we have here in this area. And, I had the privilege of directing one show at Barron County High School, and it was just really just a great time and so much fun. So, I'd like to do more of that too eventually, where I have some time to really work with some of the high school students and some of the middle schools, students. And as Far Off Broadway Players, we would love to do more workshops with, young actors and, older actors, and really because it's a scary prospect. People don't even know what to expect unless they've been in a show before.
Right.
And they don't even know they can do it. But, it'd be really nice to maybe just some kind of intro class where if you're like, have you ever thought about doing this and you want to actually come out and do this? I would love to be able to someday have the time and, not have to wear a mask and actually bring everybody together and commune and teach them how to do some of these things, So, yeah, we're really, really lucky. And Far Off Broadway Players is just really, one small organization amidst many, many others. And I'm just really fortunate to be a part of it and to live here because it's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous area, man. It really is.
You hear it all the time. Well, I don't know if I'm sure people tell you, but behind your back, people like to do it because I guess they don't know how to say it to you in person. So they say it to other people of how they never thought that they could do what they just done, on stage. And they were floored when Paul cast them in this show. Whether it was the actual role that they went out for or not, they were so surprised that they were even in the show to begin with. On top of that, how rehearsals go, you build up to what the end product is. And it blows their mind. And sometimes I still get a little blown away by the process of it, where you take words written down on a piece of paper and X amount of days, weeks, couple of months, you work on it and then boom, the production quality of the show that Far Off puts on, it's amazing to look back on it and go, oh my God, we did that.
Yep.
So somebody who's never done it before, period, never thought that they could do that, but they always wanted to. They always had there was a certain part of them that was like, I really want to do it, but I don't think it's possible for me. I have heard so many times, I cannot believe Paul did this. And it's like, no, you did it. Like, you're the one that was on the stage. Like, they don't give themselves enough credit.
That's what I always tell them.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything.
So if anybody watching this that is not a part of Far Off Broadway Players or has never done any theater type of performance ever, wants to get involved, and I know right now COVID puts a damper on a lot of things, but if they wanted to get involved, if they wanted to go ahead and throw their name in for whatever in the future, is there a way for them to do that now? Like, is there an email? They like the Far Off Broadway Players on Facebook. How would they go about throwing their name in the hat for any behind-the-scenes stuff? Because I know, for an actual show, for a performance, you're going to want to audition when the auditions are live. But if they more or less just wanted to kind of get their feet wet behind the scenes, is there any way for them to go ahead and say, hey, sign me up, let me know the dates?
Well, I will say this. I mean, you can go to our website, which is faroffbroadwayplayers.com. There's a contact us page. If you fill out the contact us page, it'll come right to me, and I will respond accordingly to that. We also have our Facebook page. If you're on Facebook and you go and like our page, you'll see everything that we need. You can also private message me through Facebook, and I'll do my best to get back to you as promptly as possible. Like I always say, no questions are too stupid when it comes to this stuff. Whatever question you may have, ask me. Regarding the rest of the year, we will not be doing any productions for the rest of 2020. That's in part due to not only patrons being able to come and see the show, but in terms of actors safely being able to gather together and rehearse and spit in each other's faces, and get that kind of close-knit acting that I like to do during this time is kind of difficult. I have some friends in the professional world that are doing shows right now, but they're literally wearing masks and face shields, doing these kind of roles. And I can see that happening. I mean, yeah, okay. But to me, it would be a little distracting, and it's not something that I really wanted to go there with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you can't really see any sort of facial expressions and emotion coming from somebody who's got a mask over their face.
Right. And you get the glare of the lights with the face shield and all that kind of stuff, So, so we won't be doing any shows in 2020, but right now, we do have a tentative schedule for 2021, barring anything that happens, but it's kind of hard to put everything on the schedule right now. And really say, yeah, this is going to happen, because we really don't know yet. But our goal is to do 5 shows in 2021. That's going to be our goal. And 4 of them are shows we were supposed to do this year. So we're going to try to do all of those shows next year as well. I'm throwing an idea right now around. That's not, I don't know if it's going to happen yet or anything, but I'm throwing an idea around right now about doing a virtual show, sometime later this year. But it's not, it's not something that we have said, yes, we're definitely doing this, but it's something that I have proposed to put out there. So, keep checking our Facebook page on that. Because it will require, actors to do it, but in a virtual sense. So I won't give away my ideas, but I'll say I have some what I think are pretty cool ideas to put something like this together. If you want to be involved, keep your fingers crossed that this is actually going to happen. And if you happen to see a thing that's comes out on Facebook that says, "Hey, would you like to audition for a virtual show?" Well, heck, sit down with a little iPhone and record a little, audition and, send it to me, and we'll see what we can do. But, and you can do that anytime, by the way, for any kind of shows. If you want to do something there, do a monologue. I always enjoy seeing all the talented people, in this area. So that's all I got.
Cool.
My brain hurts.
All right. Well, since we're towards the end here, I've got 12 quick questions to ask you. These are rapid fire.
Sure.
Yeah. So I kind of took this from inside the actor's studio. Of course, some of the questions are Mr. James Lipton's, just as an ode to him, because I was a big fan of his and the show and everything he did for the acting community, theater, and whatnot. So the last one is definitely his, because he asked everybody that was on there. So let's start with the number 1. Mr. Paul Glodfelter, what's your favorite word?
Peace.
What's your least favorite word?
Hate.
What's your favorite part of the day?
Sunrise.
What sound or noise do you love?
My wife's voice. I love it.
On the flip side, what sound or noise do you hate?
Dissonant music.
I hear that. What scent brings you joy? What scent or smell brings you joy?
Freshly baked cinnamon buns.
Ooh, nice. What scent or smell brings you disgust?
Dirty feet.
If you could, what other profession or hobby would you like to attempt outside of theater?
Excluding teaching.
Oh, caveat.
Archaeology.
All right. If you could interview any famous person, living or dead, who would it be?
Who? Interview any person, living or dead. Who would it be?
Famous person.
Next week, Paul, just in case you needed to know that.
Huh. I would probably say Edgar Allan Poe.
Ooh.
Oh, nice.
Now a little more personal. If you could have dinner with anyone of your choosing, living or dead, doesn't have to be famous, who would it be? This is dinner, a little more intimate.
My mom.
Come on. All right, and the last one. This is the one from Inside the Actor's Studio. If heaven exists, what would you like God to say to you when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You're not done yet.
Beautiful. And that was the last one. All right, so we've gone on for an hour and a half.
That one.
So I think it's time for us to say our goodbyes. And thank you so much, Paul, for agreeing to do this. Thank you so much.
And real quick, Paul mentioned all the social media and the websites. You can actually go on there and read about the history of Far Off Broadway Players on the, what is it, Far Off Broadway, what's the URL?
FarOffBroadwayPlayers.com.
There you go.
FarOffBroadwayPlayers.com.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you again, Paul. I'm going to say bye. How's everybody else?
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me and putting up with my long-winded answers. Appreciate it.
Oh, we enjoyed it. Thank you.
Loved it.
Thank you guys for watching. Matt, you're not going to do your normal sign off just because it's video. You can still sign us out.
All right. Well, of course, if you'd like to reach us, you can get us at deadpanstudio18@gmail.com. We're on social media at deadpanstudio18 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, we are on many different streaming platforms, 14 as of right now. So I'm only going to touch on the important ones: iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Podbean, deadpanstudio.podbean.com, and iHeartRadio.
Or the one you listen to.
Yeah, exactly. And YouTube. Since this is a video, it'll be on YouTube. Check it out. See y'all later.
Peace.